sons, obey your evil laws. Do to us what you will. Threaten our children and we will still love you. Come into our homes at the midnight hours of night and take us out on the desolate highway and beat us and leave us there.
Red, white, and blues. This murder on Orange Avenue. Red, white, and blue. It's murder on Orange Avenue. Oh, mothers and fathers, sisters, brothers, loved ones. Oh, now their lives are through. Hatred got a rifle. Aimed at the heart of this land. Hatred got a rifle. Aimed at the heart of this land. Hatred in our hearts. Blood stains on our hands. hatred, violence in this land. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Don't know what I'm gonna do.
Is that?
Obviously, the anger, the hostility, the bitterness,
Look into the darkness, it looks back. Best high in the hood since cook cracks, and that's what I'm good at.
All right. Welcome back. My name is Marquez. This is the Sunday Supper. I'm here today with your guests. I've got Pasha Morgan, local activist, Jessica Avant, another activist, as well as Rob Johnson, one of our community leaders. We're going to just break bread today and discuss some of the things that are affecting our community. I wanted to start with kind of a continuation on last week's conversation. There was a pushback of people who kind of want us to continue that. So I'm going to start with Black identity. What right now do you think is the identity, if you could describe Black America or Black culture? And I guess we could start just to not make that as robust. What do you think the identity of Black Iowa is right now? Loaded one, right? Just kick it off with something heavy.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think the reason I asked that is because I feel like this is probably, especially for your listeners, I feel like this past few months with this show, things that Rob's going, things that all of us have been out there on the front lines, there's been more national attention probably than that Iowa's ever gotten for racial issues and disparities of that nature. So I'm just curious, with us being on the front line, what do you all think? What do y'all think about that?
I am personally going to save my comments for last because I'm not from here. I've lived here for the last couple of years, but I'm not actually from here, so I'm
that'll be interesting too.
Right.
Yeah.
Jessica, I think you're from here. I moved here to go to college.
I moved here to go to high school.
So that's even more interesting if we're all got a similar, because that's an interesting aspect of being Black in Iowa too, is a lot of us migrated here. Yeah. So,
but also though we got to remember too, like right now at this point where we are is you have a group of young people who are young adults who are setting the stage and creating noise and disrupting space to make sure that they are heard, right? If they haven't been invited to the table before, they're invited now, right?
Yep.
If they haven't been heard before, they're being heard now. And then you got another section of folk who are probably, I would say, an older generation who are really kind of sitting back and planning and doing some other stuff from their end. And then you got the middle childs like us, right? Who are in our 30s and 20s and who are like, yo, we got to figure out, we got to do some of what they doing and some of what they're doing and then find this space in between us. And so I think the identity is not necessarily one of these spaces, but it's all of them. Okay. It's an opportunity for everybody to find their voice.
Yeah.
Right? If you are a creative person, there's a role for you, right? Creating flyers, doing art, making sure that stuff is happening. If you are behind the scenes strategic person, there's a role for you. Like there is a role, and y'all know I'm a man of faith, and so I always relate a lot to the Bible. So I got to share this with you. I was telling a group of white clergymen, I said, listen, in the Bible that we all read, that we say that we subscribe to, it tells us that there's a story between Joshua and Moses, where Moses tells Joshua to go to the valley to fight, and Moses goes to the hill. And in the Bible, it tells us that Moses is holding his hands up. And as long as Moses' hands were up, Joshua was winning in the valley. And so I had to remind everybody that some of you all can't be Joshua, and some of you all will not be Moses. You gonna be somewhere in there, but you gotta find your place.
Find where you fit,
right?
yeah.
And they both were necessary. Joshua was needed to win the fight in the valley. Moses was needed on the hill, but the hill needed help, and so did the valley. So we gotta find wherever our place is in this fight, wherever you identify the best at, find your place. But it can be all three, or it can be just one.
Okay.
I mean, as a transplant, part of my identity, especially living at least more than half my life in Iowa, is like one of kind of like culture shock still. Because I came from a place that was so much worse. Like I grew up in Richmond, California.
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah.
I've heard stories.
Yeah.
I've
Like,
heard stories.
you know, that's the one that nobody talks about, but we're up there, you know.
Yeah.
And so dangerous schools, dangerous pretty much everything, and substandard education, substandard infrastructure, like even for a very seemingly wealthy city and state. And so my identity has always been like, I always remember that there are people that have lived here their whole life and black people, I guess. There are black people here that have lived here their whole life that even if they understand what our collective cultural experience is on a personal level, they've not seen it. And sometimes that can change the conversation a little bit. And definitely will let you know that you're not from here.
Yeah. So for some, because I know some people may be listening and maybe what she's meaning is when you're looking at culture and not the typical black experience that say that you would experience in a Richmond or a Kansas City or Chicago, but you might not get that here. So I know that there are some people that are like, yo, what is?
Well, I'll say even
and
like just the extent of the effects of systemic racism and poverty. Like, in a way, there are people here that have been sheltered from some of that, like very overt signs, where you can't go down this street. You just can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
Like there's no, but the systematic issues may be a little bit.
Yeah, different, but I say
yeah.
like it's the, I'll go back to how people say, well, Iowa nice.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's always the Iowa nice thing is always an interesting thing because you look at it and it's like, who does that apply to? Like, where does that?
As somebody who is
Morgan is like, yo.
As somebody who is a new implant, I want you to know, first of all, the very first thing I noticed is people understand how racist Iowa is because the first thing they told me is they were like, well, because the first thing I asked when I moved to a new spot, first of all, I was a military brat. So racism wasn't a big part of my childhood, but after I got out, of course, that was into civilian life. America was quickly and eager to remind me how black I was. So, but that being said, here it's different. First, they are kind of aware of how racist Iowa is. even with the Iowa Nice slogan, because they will tell you, the first thing they told me, the first thing I ask is, well, how are the police? That's the very first thing I want to know, and anywhere I go. I don't want to know about anything else. We'll talk about housing and everything else later. How are the relationships with people of color and police here? How do the police treat people of color? Do you have a lot of incidents? How many, And the first thing they told me when I moved here was, oh, Des Moines' all right, but don't go outside of Des Moines. Like, don't go to West Des Moines, don't go to Johnston, don't go to don't go to Norwalk. They are fully aware, the people of color. The people who are not of color are not. They feel like they are that Iowa nice, but all that is a really nice racism. I even joke with my friends when I call back to talk to some of my friends in Texas, of all places. I joke with them and I said, even their racism is Iowa nice. Like, remember the racist notes that were even slipped underneath the door of Drake students? That's Iowa nice.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean racism doesn't exist. It just means they do it
It's being executed in a way that it sounds crazy, like almost like they're trying to do it in like a tasteful way.
Yeah.
Like, let me be tasteful.
Microaggressions.
Like,
Vote blue no matter who.
No matter who.
I want you to know.
Yeah.
That is one of. I'll let you go on.
And that kind of leads me to my. I'm glad you said that, right?
Whoa.
Because it's weird to even like, because I feel like I've asked this before. And I try to get off of the subject as quick as possible.
Ooh.
But it's a thing. It's really happening, right?
It's a trigger. It's a trigger for me.
Does it trigger you, brother? Listen, here's the thing, right? How do y'all feel about? So here's the thing. For those that aren't aware, Kanye West, popular artist, entrepreneur, a bunch of hats, recently threw his name
Most
in
famously a MAGA one.
Yeah, recently threw his name into the conversation for president. At first, I think a lot of people looked at it as sort of like a joke, but as time has kind of gone on, we've seen responses from both major campaigns. We've seen some evidence that he's going to actually be really hitting the campaign trail, setting up headquarters, just a normal campaign. I can already tell. Like, how do y'all feel? I guess so. Let me start it with just to add some depth to the question. Like, because on one end, there's like, as an artist, as a black man, as a free thinker, should we be celebratory of his ability to do this? But at the same time, is his goal to split the vote? Is it? And so that's kind of where I'm. How do you guys feel about this?
I think the ability comes purely from a it's a narcissistic one, honestly.
Yeah.
It's I have enough money and enough people know me. That's all I need to run. And that's basically just taking advantage of a system that's broken. I don't find anything celebratory about that. There's a number of, just because you can run does not mean you should run. And I'll generally not be the person to deter somebody from participating in the civic process. But where's your experience? Where's your experience governing, being a part of the process, representing people that don't work for you?
That's an interesting point, because that's an interesting point, because because then you could almost say that against any business leader that hops in, and like if let's say the CEO of Amazon says he wants to run for, I don't know where he lives, the senator in California or something. That's just interesting. Yeah.
Well, I say that because there's a different dynamic there.
Yeah.
And there's a different mindset that can come from that
versus people willingly following you. Yeah.
And then you have instead of treating your cabinet members, your members of Congress, like colleagues, there to facilitate the legal process and defend the people, then it's, these are my employees. I am the head. At the end of the day, I make the decisions. Okay. But there's a reason why the presidency attracts so many narcissists. So it's almost inevitable to.
I'll be honest. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I'll be honest with you, man. I think so. A friend of mine is Kenneth Cameron, and I think Kanye needs to sit down with Kenneth and have a one-on-one session for mental health.
You think it's a mental health issue?
No.
Okay.
So
No. He definitely has some mental health issues.
I think he needs to sit down and do a one-on-one.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, and I'll go on record and I'll tell you, being from the Chi, I think Kanye is absolutely a genius, right? I think he's and in my opinion, I think he's one of the best to ever do it, right? And so, for me, when I look for president, I feel like Barack Obama really set a tone. Now, he didn't do everything that I felt that he could have, or whatever the case may be, but we also have to remember, the president is a figurehead who has such amount of power, and they made sure to check that every time the Senate came around with Mitch McConnell.
Yep.
Right.
The real power lies in the Senate.
Yes.
In
Congress in general, right.
And so my whole question to Kanye would be, bro, if you really want to make a difference, run for Congress or Senate
in Illinois, and
run
then
for
really
Congress
start
or
pushing
Senate.
that. Okay.
And then that's when you realize, because as you can see right now, the House can trigger something. The Senate can trigger something. Let me be really clear. I don't know which camera is on, which one ain't, but I want to be really clear. I'm going to look directly at this one just because it's right there. I want to be really clear to everybody watching. The president doesn't make laws. They make no laws. They are a figurehead. Yes, they have power, but they make no laws at all. The people who make laws, legislation, comes from your senators and your representatives, your congressional members. That's who make laws, not your president. So if Kanye really wanted to make a difference, he wouldn't be running for president. He would be running for Senate.
I want to go back to his mental health issues, because I don't want anybody to think that mental health issues disqualifies you from being president.
No,
I
it
don't
don't.
think it does.
Okay.
I think, though, seeing where he is and seeing the stages of what can only be described as a manic episode or a mania, this is not the time to make decisions like running for president.
Yeah.
So I would say that. I don't know. I think that it's a bad move for all intents and purposes. I don't think he's doing it to split the votes necessarily. I think he's doing it because he thinks right now that he could win and that he could do a better job. Which the truth of the matter is, I can't say that the man couldn't do a better job than the current person in charge right now.
And that's kind of where I'm at with it. That's kind of where I was at. Is just because of.
I mean,
I feel like we're.
Clear, I will not be voting for him.
No, for sure. No, but it's
let me be clear. Because this is on camera. Let me be clear.
Yeah, no, it's that weird thing though, because I feel like we're in the same position that we were in 4 years ago, 8 years, like where it's like we're saying, no, that could never happen. That could never happen. But I'm just looking at the trajectory of he declared himself a billionaire. He's actually more popular and culturally impactful than Trump was.
Yes.
Like from a.
My thing is not even from a point where it couldn't happen, because at this point,
that's what my thing is. It's like, could we really say that it could never happen? Like,
or a freaking
scandal or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Good Music Friday is a national holiday. Every Friday, like that could happen.
Anything could happen.
It just.
Let's say we go.
It's just it's one. It makes it that much harder for people on the ground to get other people who are new to the process or already dealing with voter apathy to really take it seriously. And then it starts looking like a farce. I mean, yeah, systematically it kind of is, but then it's so overt that it's just, why waste your time at that point? It's not just a broken system. Now it's just a system that everyone's agreed to go along with.
Yeah.
And so it's also unfortunate because we still have this a lot of people, especially the people that we need as supporters and not necessarily leaders in a lot of instances, we still have this mindset where, okay, if it's going to get done, I have to be the one to do it, to be the face, to be the decision maker, to be the one in that chair. No, truthfully, I would much rather see Kanye invest in all the amazing people that are running for Senate, that are running for city council, that are running for school board.
That know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Platform.
That know
Yeah.
that know the territory, that know those
I
communities.
vote for Kim first.
You would vote for Kim first.
Absolutely, she's brilliant. She's clearly a genius at marketing
you know what?
and managing. She has a law degree. She has an advanced degree. Why would I not? Absolutely, I would.
So I want to comment on something real quick. So everybody was talking about Joe Biden VP pick, right? And how he should pick a woman of color. I'm down for that. But I also think that representation matters. Representation matters. If we pull somebody from somewhere where they are, then we've lost representation in that position, because we don't know if that will be replaced by the same representation again.
Rob, you hit it right. That actually segues perfect into what I was gonna ask you guys next. Because if not a Kanye, I guess what type of, because it's kind of the dual question, because I think we've talked about this. It keeps coming up because of how important it is, especially right now, the need of like a monolith for our culture or for the movement, or like we need a Martin Luther King or a Malcolm X to spearhead this. And we don't. I think that's been established, that there could be the many-face approach. But from our existing leadership, from these positions, what should we be looking for from leaders? From these people in these positions, what are things that we should be looking for from a black leadership role, from local representatives and state, senators? Like, we don't have aldermen here, but like in these city council members, like what should we be looking for from within our culture to put in those positions?
From our current.
Because we can only pull from what is. You know what I mean? And so like, you know how it is. I want to say in the realm of practical, like from what we have right now, just looking in specifically, we can just keep it in Des Moines. What would we like to see from a black leadership? Like if we were to, let's say let me refine the question. Let's say right now we were going to put a black candidate up for mayor.
Okay.
What would we like to see from him or her?
Somebody who supports the people. Here's the thing. At this point, I think that is the most important thing. This is why we're at the struggle that we're at, is because the people are finally waking up to the point that they're the actual boss, and the authorities that be have been so used to it being topsy-turvy for so long, where they think that they're actually the authority, and they have forgotten that they get their consent. We consent to be governed. Okay. So, but since now we're at that power struggle where the people are realizing that, no, you work for us. So somebody who understands that fully, that I actually work for you. I don't have the authority for me to sit on my beliefs means nothing, because once I get into that public forum, I am no longer representative of myself. If I wanted to do that, then I could stay to be the individual on the streets of Des Moines. Once I run for public office, the reason I'm doing that is to represent the public. Okay. And if you don't do that, then you gotta go.
When you show up in a space that somebody took time, effort, and resources to help get you to that space, you must honor that space.
Absolutely.
Okay.
With the utmost humility and the heart of a servant. When Deidre DeGier ran for Iowa Secretary of State, she didn't get all of this excitement because she was a black woman. She got all of that excitement because her exact words were, "I'm here because I need you to vote. If you don't vote, we don't win." That's exactly what she would say, right? And I think when you have a leader step into this space, whether you are of a party or not, if I ever ran for a position and we had meetings on something, I would always want to make sure that I'm checking back with the people that are holding me accountable. Yep. Like, for example,
public servant.
Yeah, like for example, right now, in the position that I'm in, Kayla, Will, Megan, Shekinah, Deidre, Jessica for sure, Danny, Madison, they all hold me accountable. If I show up somewhere and I start talking and start going off the rail and doing all of this, and then I come back to the squad and Jessica and Danny and Madison and Shekinah and all of them are on the call, I best believe, and y'all better believe, that they gonna check that. Rob, you went to such and said such and such, and we don't like that. Because you are representing us. Me and Jessica was just on the call last, Thursday? We was just on the call last Thursday, right? And I'm talking, right? And I would always pause and say, hey, I don't want to speak for them. If it's okay with them, I want to check with them. And they would always say, no, you doing good, go ahead, right? So you must, and I think sometimes people get uncomfortable with that accountability, right? With that moment of man, somebody's about to check me if I ain't right. Yeah.
A lack of ego.
I say
To sum it all up, that would be a very important part of being an elected official.
I say we often look a lot of times for people who lead. They lead. That's important. But I think it's also important that to look for people who have experienced following.
Absolutely.
Because the first thing you really got to understand when you're an elected official is that you aren't the leader. And a lot of people don't understand that.
Your job is to follow.
Yeah, you
follow
represent
the will of the
me.
people. You're a servant.
The butler of the people. Seriously.
You
Like in the
represent
sense
me.
of like
Yeah.
literally representing.
Go ahead, I don't want to cut
Oh,
you off.
no, go ahead.
No, you excited us. That was
Because
really
to
like
bring it back, and most people know,
that might be the best.
Yeah.
Not to cut you off. That might be the best
absolutely
of what we need from a leader. Like right, it's probably someone who's been willing to follow.
Absolutely.
Like someone because that
Who knows
that
how
shows
to.
who knows how to follow.
Right.
Because that demonstrates that you know how to listen to.
And that
a
goes back
lack
to
of
my
ego,
business.
humility.
Yeah.
My business
It shows
person dynamic. Like a business, a boss, and an employee is a different dynamic.
It is than a voter and an elected official.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
And-
you need
and people
me.
keep getting that mixed up, and that's
You
what I'm saying with the
need me.
topsy-turvy world. But
Yeah.
not to steal it from my boy Rob here, but I ancient. We talked about spirituality before,
Word.
but one of the things is there's a passage in the Bible that talks about Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. The funny part about that is everybody kind of grazes over that. But he starts out by saying, hey, I'm a master, right? You call me master, you call me teacher, good, you're right. That's what I am. So why am I doing this? Because if I can do this, there's nothing you shouldn't do. That is the heart of a servant. You can't be a public servant without having that heart, literally,
serve.
that I am humble. Like, literally, thank you for putting me in this position. Thank you for trusting me with this responsibility. So what can I do to serve you?
Let me ask y'all
Real quick,
Okay.
I gotta say this. Thank you. I think it's also important for black men to remember that it's our job to serve.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, especially within the black
Yes.
That's something that I'm glad
Yeah.
you because
Yeah.
within the black male ego,
Yeah.
there has to be like I do it all the time with my lady. Like, yo, you have to constantly humble yourself. Like,
Yeah,
yo,
you do.
I'm talking too much. That's why constantly, even like when I have you on, I'm like, yo, I literally be like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have to
Don't do the same
you
thing.
have to
You have
overdo
to-
it just to overwork your own ego and not to man.
Black men, we have to do a better job at serving each other,
and protecting our women for sure.
our children,
Yeah.
our community. What happened here is we let somebody trick us in believing that we had the power and that we was the ones that were supposed to be dominating.
Well, it comes from from
and
years
here's-
of not having
and
it,
here's the
and then
thing.
the only place where we can exercise it, it's the toxic mentality that's
Let me-
even.
let me-
yeah,
I
man.
want to make sure I'm clear on this. Yes, go ahead on and lead. But a leader does what Jessica says. It's flipped, right? If I ever get married again, it's going to be how do I lead by making sure all of us are on the same page together and I'm serving my household. Because when I walk in, it's not the needs of me, it's the needs of them. Right? It's all of us together collectively as a whole. And somewhere we let somebody tell us that we had to be, the leader.
I don't-
instead of the servant.
I don't necessarily think I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that I agree with what your basic point. I don't, but we can't discount the trauma of slavery.
True.
And
true.
so I don't think it's that we felt like da-da-da. I think it's the trauma
And I'm
of
not saying
slavery
that's a
led
mistake.
to.
No, for sure.
Really,
think-
I understand what you're
I see-
saying,
I
but
understand
it's,
both of
it's,
you. Yeah.
It's what you're saying, but I don't think it was it's so much of an ego thing at first as it was if you're being beaten down by everyone in the world, at home you were propped up. That was your thing. So yes, you are the leader here. Yes, you are the boss here.
And
You
so
may have to
the
bow to
echoes
this guy.
of that have-
You may have to
yeah,
bow, and
yeah.
it went clear up into the 60s. You may have to put your face down when you're walking past the white guy on the street. But here, you're a king, and
I see what you're saying.
and so I think, but we're different. We've evolved, and we need to.
It needs to be the
evolve.
pullbacks. I think that's the thing, is the adjustments in those things. I'm glad that we could do that with, you know what I'm saying? Let me segue into something else, actually.
Yeah.
This is a little interesting thing, because we're talking about leadership. We don't have a black mayor, right? We look for in a black mayor. We don't have a lot of super black leadership in the state that can.
We don't have a black man.
I think
yet.
there's a
Yeah.
black mayor in
We don't have Quentin Hart. Quentin Hart. And yeah,
Smart
shouts to
guy.
Quentin. We're going to pull him in too. I guess my next question is in allies, because the conversation always goes to our white allies. What does what we're looking for in leadership in an ally mirror what we're looking for in someone from our own community? Like, are they? I guess what responsibilities does an ally or Jessica, I feel like you know exactly where I was going with that. I'll let you go.
I guess I would say like it's different, because an ally should be, you have done the research and you could not find somebody from the community that needs the representation you're looking for, but this person has been working part of that community, and they can articulate these issues. They've been an advocate for these issues, and they have the trust of this community. But their job will be part of their job will be to find wherever they can to lift up the voices of those people in the community that may not have been able to run for office, but still need the platform to speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times allies in their enthusiasm will, okay, I'm going to say she wants this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, when you could easily just brought me in and I could have spoke out of myself, and I could have answered questions that you may never, or brought up things or reacted to things, because that's what's the most important part about being at that table. Whereas if I'm from that community, yes, it's still important for me to try to lift up others. So it's not just all on me. And there's a new generation of leadership, and I'm grooming. But the way I'm going to groom them, the way I'm going to interact, the way that representation is going to come off is going to be different.
Okay.
Speaking of lifting up others, thank you. I agree with everything you're saying. It just brought something to mind, because that is so important in this whole movement. Is to remember that we are the reason it's going like it's going is because we are unified. We're united right now.
Yes.
So that being said, yesterday I went to a thing for Vanessa Guillen.
Okay.
And it was very disappointing.
Who is Vanessa Guillen?
She is a woman a soldier who was murdered by a fellow soldier.
Where did they find her?
On Fort Hood. They found her dismembered in concrete right outside of the Leon River, which I don't know which side of the Leon River. I was stationed at Fort Hood, and I spent 14 years right outside of there.
Wow.
That's where I moved from right before I got here. But the thing about that is, it wasn't just her. It happens. Sexual harassment and sexual abuse happens so often in the military, and is covered up by chain of command. Lavinia Lynn Taylor. Pretty sure her name is. She was found in Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm pretty sure it was Iraq. In her tent, she was beaten, mutilated. There was some sort
these
of
are black women.
And they burned her.
And they burned her, and they
On
ruled
her
it on her
primary.
genitals, and
Yeah.
they ruled it a suicide.
Yep.
Even though her rifle was found on the other side of the cot from where she was found, with a trail of blood leading to her body. And they ruled it a suicide. It happens quite often in the military, and it's covered up by chain of command. It's covered up because they're afraid of retribution from these same people who are supposed to defend their life. I'm a veteran, so this is the one thing you're taught, is that this person right here has your six. They have your back. You, regardless of anything else, we're green, we go in, we have each other's, and we all come home. And women in the military are not privileged to have that same camaraderie.
Okay.
And so, but the event was held, and to see this going into, what is it, the 6th week now of the movement, protesting, and then to show up to this event of our same brothers and sisters, our brown brothers and sisters, who, particularly through this event, and needed the support, and not to see the same people, the 5,000 that I've marched with, the 3,000, the 300 that showed up in the video that we were showing right before the clip, and to see a meager maybe 50 people there was quite disappointing, because
So just to you're just to round it, so you want to see more solidarity amongst.
we have to.
Yeah.
If we're going to support
Right.
everything, we have to support each other. We have to realize that, because if the strength of this movement is that we're all in this together. So the same people who are supporting you, if then they don't feel like they have that same support back, then we have a breakdown of a movement, and that is what we cannot afford.
So what does I guess?
I guess I would say, like, one thing that we're gonna have to overcome for that unity is the comfort that comes from anti-black racism, from that for groups of people that are not privileged to have white privilege, and that's a lot.
POC solidarity, right?
You're right.
We gotta overcome that.
But it's not just on. Like, we can invite people to the movement, but people are gonna have to start asking themselves, why aren't we? Like, we all, to some extent, are dealing with varying degrees of the same issue.
Especially when you look at class and income
Yes.
and things of that nature. Yeah.
And, you know, just a statistic of one just may be higher for one person,
Maybe
but
a
it's
couple,
all,
but it's the same issue.
stemming
Yeah.
from the white supremacist hierarchy. So
No,
that's a conversation. That's what makes it difficult, I guess, is that's not a conversation. We can try to initiate that conversation, but it's almost like that's a conversation that people have to, which is coming, you know, like Asians for Black Lives Matter, Natives for Black Lives Matter, in which case you do have Asian allies, and it's really quite beautiful, that are saying, like, look, you know, we're not blameless in this. Yes, we are victims, but we have a hand in the current state of affairs too. We need to face this with each other, but also some of this work we have to do amongst our own.
Our indigenous brothers and sisters are going so hard for us, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
And I told somebody the other day, I
And
was
shouts
talking
to the ruling yesterday or a few days ago.
Yes.
For Oklahoma for the natives.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we saw
Absolutely.
that's powerful. So
Heck yeah, they've been fighting for that for a long
Yeah.
time. So hopefully now that is this my camera? Now that we've got that, we're coming for the Black Hills.
well, you know what's interesting? We're gonna. I don't want to get into that today, but there's a whole discussion to be had about, you know, what does that look like with our culture? Is it Hong Kong-esque? Is it, you know, that's another episode.
Right.
We don't have like 20 minutes left today. So, but let me ask y'all. I guess. So I guess what because I guess the conversation on allies. So what messaging right now? Like what would in a perfect world, what would we receive from an ally right now in this movement? Like, yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I'm gonna say this. We met with Joni Ernst.
That's what before you let me. So Rob Johnson and a team of other leaders in our community had the chance this past week to sit down with Joni Ernst, Republican. I think she's a congressman,
She's a senator.
Republican
For Iowa.
senator They got a chance to talk to her about some of her things, and she's had some historic stances on things publicly in the past. How did that meeting go, Rob?
So, first of all, again, back to the thing of accountability. I knew that we had to make sure that this wasn't no feel-good meeting for us to come out, because I knew I was going to have to answer to Jessica if she would have saw that and said, bruh, you did not say, you did not go where you needed to go, right? So we came out blazing. Like, look, this is the issue. We talked about education, economic wealth gap. We talked about food deserts. We talked about housing issues. We talked about the disparity of now with COVID-19. Black people have not contracted COVID-19 more, but we've died more from it. We talked about my boy Otis Moss III. He said we have to learn to deal with COVID-16-19 before we deal with COVID-19 itself. Because once you deal with COVID-16-19, it stems from all of this stuff that I just talked about. Understanding that healthcare is a problem, that money is a problem.
You put all these things it brought it all. It's almost, I describe it as funny. It's almost like when your septic tank back up, where it's everything backed up because it's been messed up. You should have been got it fixed. And it rained.
So
now we got all this shit out in the yard. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, let's push this back. Like, no, this we've been going through this. Yeah.
So I told her.
How was she?
Yeah. So I told her. I said, look, at the end of the day, I said, whether you Democrat or Republican, whether you Baptist, Lutheran, or Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, whatever you subscribe to, at the end of the day, if you have a seat at a table in a room where we are not represented, this is my exact words to her was, and I'm going to ask you all this. If we walked in here right now and the lights were out, what would we do?
Well, y'all wouldn't be seeing it if right now the lights was out.
We would turn on the light, right? We would turn on the light. You would flip a light switch, right? Anytime you go into a room and it's dark, you turn on the light. And that is what we need from our white allies. When you go into a room and it's dark and you don't see any of us around, you turn on your light.
Right. I love that. That tacks on to kind of what you were saying too, where it's, but even with that, making sure when you turn on the light that you're bringing someone of color to speak for themselves.
That's how you
turn
on the light.
Right? Man.
Because here's the thing. If you don't turn on the light, you blend in with the darkness. So how can I differentiate you from the rest of everybody at the table if you blending in with everybody at the table? If you don't shine your light, if you don't be the one, all right, this is what I love about this table. Everybody at this table is shining their light in dark spaces, right? Because I'm not where Morgan is. I'm not where Jessica. I'm not where you are, right? But in all of our areas, we're shining our light.
That's what the most important thing with this movement right now is. I think, and that's what I'm glad that that's one of those things that, and if you're watching that we can drill that into your head, is that if you're looking for the Martin Luther King of this movement, just talk to the black person next to you that goes and experiences this every day, and that's typically, I mean, and
I want to say also with the allies, the one thing that I love, particularly about Generation Z, I want you to know, when y'all were eating Tide Pods, I had no idea that y'all were going to be superheroes, I swear.
It gave them their powers.
They
gave them their powers, bro.
Kids, and their thing is they challenge it. Like, because it's for so long, for black people, it's, especially for black people my age, maybe a little younger, but definitely older, your training has always been, basically, it all boils down to don't make white people feel uncomfortable. And that's what this is about right now, is challenge this entire system, which is going to go against everything that we've been trained, whether it was openly or overtly.
I would say our generation is the one where they said where we really was.
You probably weren't, but you're way younger than me.
So
but you're way younger than me. Yes, I'm a Zennial.
Okay.
I'm older than you. I'm 44.
Okay.
So that was the thing. And then it was not so much because Zennials and below, we're not teaching our kids that. screw that. We're not doing that. So they were still in the outer, but we were still had socially acceptable. Generation Z kicked the door down, and they are just on fire. And one thing about the allies in Generation Z is they're challenging this. They're not letting, it's not, oh, well, that's just the way Aunt Carol is anymore. No, it's Aunt Carol, you're a racist, homie.
And that's
and you need to stop being a racist.
I think
Donald Trump is a racist, not because he doesn't like black people, it's because his policies. And if you support a policy that discriminates and causes harm to black folk or anyone else,
or disproportionately to
that is racist.
I would just say, if you're willing to invest in a system of racial oppression or just any kind of oppression, well, we'll just say racial oppression for this, or you're invested enough not to do anything about it at all, you're racist. You're just racist. Like, that's just the way you are. You don't have to. You don't have to be. Everyone wants to paint it as somebody that's, oh, I hate black people, keep them far away from me, everything like that. No, you just have to be willing to go with the status quo. Because that's what it is.
Brings us back to vote blue no matter who.
Well, before you get to that, because you've been holding to say that. A part of the purpose of me even asking this conversation about an ally, because y'all know most people watching are people that aren't of color. Most of it is crowds that are tapping in. Like, I think we're at like 10,000 viewers episode right now. Which is dope. It's people tapping in that are paying attention. That, I guess one thing I want to say is, even if you don't consider yourself an ally, find a person of color and have a conversation. If that person has to be me,
be uncomfortable.
And here's the thing:
somebody of color who wants to have
that. Don't even do
not just the first, not your black coworker while they're in the middle of their job.
There are places where these conversations are part of the structure of that environment. Go there.
I think a part of the reason I say that is because one of the main pushbacks I get, because we got a lot of listeners who are in places like I got a listener who hit me from Redfield, Iowa. It's kind of like,
I've been there.
Nothing. It's like nothing there, right? Y'all got stuff there. It's dope. It's beautiful. But you know what I'm saying. But
I've been there. Not a lot of diversity.
And they hit me and honestly say, "Yo, I'll watch your show." And this is I've never heard this stuff said before.
Yeah.
I want to ask things, but I don't want to sound racist. But I know that the things that I say might come across. My thing is like, yo, and you're right, and you're right too. Where it's that thing where it's like, black people don't owe you a conversation, an explanation. You have Google just as well. You know what I'm saying? But don't be afraid to try to find someone don't be afraid to try to find someone that will calmly sit you down. And I want to put myself out there personally for especially all the listeners. Same way I think a lot of us at this table are special. That's why I pull us in.
You got 5 minutes, bro.
Yeah. So we might go over today, but listen. But I think my thing is like, yo, just feel free to hit any of us up if you got questions. If you got questions that you want to ask that maybe we're not touching, that you're like, yo, but say this. How do I do that?
Maybe we do a show. How about we do a show?
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a question.
Yeah.
See, Rob, you giving up my content. All right, now I wasn't going. All right, Rob. Yeah, we got that on the way.
No, that was the next.
All right, you know it. Can I lead into it? Thank you, Rob. Yeah, so we're gonna have a segment where we're gonna let y'all. I want y'all to be able to just ask questions like, yo, is this us? Like, yo, ask anything. We're gonna try to set it up in a way where it's anonymous too, if you want to.
Yeah.
You know, don't. If I might hack it. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah,
but it's important for these conversations to be had.
I just did this on one of my Facebook Lives, and it was talking about the uncomfortable conversation that has to be had.
Yeah.
And so, but not only for white people, but for black people to be if you're willing to have that conversation, be willing to have that conversation.
Businesses as well, though.
Right.
That's a huge thing.
These large companies who are afraid to speak out because, they may have somebody in their space who is a spouse of a police officer, right?
And you hit it. Yes, bro. These corporate spaces, and there's so many. That's actually, because I only have about 5 more minutes left, y'all. But that's something that we're in a future episode we're going to address is in these corporate spaces. What voice, what role can you really have in this movement? I think it's a huge thing. Ideally, I would like to see corporations like Wells Fargo or Nationwide bring us to their campus to have these conversations live in front of their people.
Yep.
You know, I think that it's dual fold. Yeah, my bad, Jessica. What was you?
I would say, like, our response to this is very often premised on the idea that they don't already know what they could be doing. And how many times do we have a kick up and they say, oh my goodness, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and research is almost like the universities. We're gonna do an evaluation, and then we'll get back to you on what needs we have, a needs assessment.
What did Malcolm X say?
And so what happens? We go through it, we go through it, we go through it. You already know what policies are problematic.
My only push, because I had that exact same. I had that exact same.
In America, we have to teach people not to be racist.
But bro,
Like,
here's my
classes.
passion. But here's my thing though, bro. Like, and my only pushback on it is and it kind of circles back to the conversation we had earlier about like a typical. If this was Atlanta, Kansas City, St. Louis, I'm totally like, yo, we're not. That's a waste of time. Let's not do that. They already know. Y'all know for Des Moines, this movement, this is like the first that it's happened like that.
But a KO's generation, when they bombed the Black Panther house that a KO survived out of, this ain't the first time.
No.
But I will say for this,
And
I
well,
mean,
it's not
but the thing is, if there's a 40-year gap in activism, though, then it's a new generational.
Let's not forget this.
But bro, and that's what. But here's
This
my
is
thing.
at the end of their hand. Anything you want to know, you can find out.
But passion. But think about this. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like,
I get what you're saying.
you see what I mean? It's the same thing with like dude from Redfield. Like, you know how like let's just take Facebook.
Oh, I see.
You see what I mean? Like if his
Yep,
Facebook
I do.
only has Breitbart and Fox News
if
and
you're
his
caught in an echo chamber and you don't know you're in
and
an
you
echo
don't hear
chamber.
it. The same way I listen to music, I might
I
not
can
hear the
see,
little
absolutely.
new Uzi Vert record, but I'm definitely gonna hear the new Nas.
Yeah.
That's just the record that I'm in.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you're
Like,
gonna
That makes
I'm
sense
not gonna
for
hear the Lil Uzi at all.
individuals.
yeah.
But for
Maybe-
businesses
Right.
that have the privilege of wealth and the wealth that buys
Right.
access
I agree.
to all, if you wanted to know what would be the best stock to invest in, what would be the best product
You know
to
how to
invest
research
in,
that.
they would know exactly how to do it.
Absolutely.
In
Let me get some.
researching scholarly articles about white privilege, the concept, the social construct of race, and all that. That is
But see, what
basic
what if these
information.
people aren't? But see, that's the only, and that's another pushback I have with that. I guess is we're intelligent enough to do that. Like me and you, like if me and you have a different opinion, me and you can go to separate sides of the room. We know how to get on Google Scholar, load up, and come back.
Everybody does though. It depends on what they're interested in because I want
But
you
I
to
can't
know.
say-
I
I
know
can't
people
say
right
that,
now
though, bro, like-
who probably would not. You probably wouldn't say we're intelligent enough to do that, but they know everything they want about Carol Baskin.
Breitbart is
If you
want to
research it,
But think about with information though. I think I feel what you, and we're running out of time. We're gonna have to come up. We have to do a whole other episode on this because this kind of gets into
Part 3.
because it's also I guess like some people think that they are researching and they're on AmericanEagle.net.
True.
Like we have to.
So
now I
There's
have to
layers
agree
of
with you there.
layers of like yo. We have to
agree
educate
with
people
you.
even on how to discern.
I got a friend.
Yeah.
I got a
That's
friend
true.
who says.
See what I mean?
I got a friend who does do research, and within his research, he's a white guy, middle-aged Mormon, right?
Wow. Okay.
And he's like,
some boxes.
He's like,
Right.
okay, Rob, answer this for me. I've read this. I've read this. Answer this for me, right? Or what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Because he can go into spaces that I'm not in.
Yeah.
And he can say, all right, I know that all of you all have seen the research that we all have, right? Oh, yeah, they sell drugs and they do this, right? Right? You
Like the
all
black
have
on black
that.
crime one
You
is the
all-
one that stands out
you
to me.
all
like,
have this.
If you can get that statistic,
I
then
I love what he does though.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
he says to me, he comes to me and he says, Rob, and I'm happy to answer the questions because I know that he's going to be going back and being like, look, I researched this. This is what I found. But this is what, but this is the conversation that I had,
Yeah.
and I see what you said because some people, even though they do the research, even though they see it, it still blinded them, right?
or it's so shocking. I've met people where it's like, even if you, like, I don't do it anymore because you know what I mean. But you sit down with someone, you show them every article,
my
you even get to the point where you're showing them video, and then at the end of it,
my God.
they're so overwhelmed because it's so counter to the false information that they've received. You're dealing with people who have received false information as fact for 40, 50 years.
But why do they? But
It's almost like let's say you believe in the ancient slug race of aliens, and your people been showing you that proof for 50 years, but now I show you like, yo, no.
I get that cognitive.
You see what I mean?
dissonance is a
Yeah.
thing. Like I definitely get that. At the same time, I think we all go to the same schools and we learn. Like it's not enough to just, oh, I read this article. Did you think critically about it the way you would if you were looking at farm equipment or something that you like?
you were interested
It's
in.
the
Like if their interest is
you read the article and it said this and it gave you and you took in information, but did you think about it? And why? Maybe I'm giving people too much credit since the CDC first had to say, let's remember how to wash our hands at the beginning of the
See,
pandemic.
I think
But
that's
at the
my
same
whole
time-
point. That's the thing.
That's my point.
That's exactly where it's like, we gotta put it on such a, and that's circle
But
back.
for
Donald
the people,
Trump
but for the
to
people it
inject
does apply
disinfectant.
to,
And
but for the
people
people
did
it
it.
does apply to, I do think they get off easy being covered under that umbrella. Wells Fargo is not them.
It's not them. Absolutely.
I think that's where there's a differentiating. We're gonna probably wrap up because we could keep going for but let's continue this conversation in the coming weeks. I'll have y'all back on, talk about this again, and let's kind of dive into the role that corporations can play in this movement and what responsibility. I know before I can load y'all up. So let me.
Kanye, don't run for president, run for Senate. That's all I want to say.
So let me go ahead and throw this off. Yeah, you should, boy. Look,
Kim Kanye, fund somebody who's already actively running for Senate.
yo, my name is Marquez. I want to thank y'all again for tuning in. I'm here with Pasha, Jessica, Rob Johnson. I forgot to say at the beginning. Today's episode is sponsored by Red Boot Distilling, Burn the Boats, Rye, Zayed Rob, the whole thing.
What's the name at the bottom of that?
Yeah, myself, Marquez. This is me. So yeah, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure y'all tune in next week, 6 p.m. every Sunday. We are not letting up, and watch for us to add more things too. We want to continue these conversations and grow them. So thank y'all for tapping in. We love y'all so
Thanks for
much.
having us.
Sunday Supper.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Obviously, the anger, the hostility, the bitterness,
Look into the darkness, it looks back. Best high in the hood since cook crack. See, that's